Welcome to Soundcheck, the show where we talk music, culture, and community from the underground. I'm your host, Lucretia McEvil. It's been a tumultuous few months for the world. There's been genocide, oppression, and unrest across the globe, and it's been increasingly harder to see. People are losing hope, and it's because their material conditions are worsening. I write this to say, don't give up. We are better together than alone. If you are feeling down, please reach out to someone. If you need help, please ask. I'd rather you here getting what you need than losing you because you couldn't get what you need. Where large organizations, corporations, and the government fall short and fail is exactly where the people will rise. You don't need permission to share dinner with your neighbor, to split expenses, or to do walking buses for children afraid of ICE and deportation. You don't need permission to stand up against bigotry and to fight. You don't need permission to start your own potlucks, reading clubs, and neighborhood watches against hate crimes and vigilantes. The spirit of punk rock is DIY, and activism is punk rock. You can make a change yourself. You can make a difference yourself. This episode is a morale boost, where I'll be playing the latest and greatest protest songs from punk, funk, hip-hop, and hardcore groups. Let's get started. New York-based blues punk outfit, the 1865, writes songs inspired from 1865 America, post-emancipation. Each song explores life in America and living in the shadows of the fallen Confederacy. Their LP, Buckshot, is highly acclaimed and worth the listen. Rest in peace to Sasha Jenkins, and sending love to all who knew and loved him. Here's 1865's Get Out.
Spare me sparingly the fragments of my dignity are so fragile. We didn't ask to be here. She's just a child. Haven't I been good to your family? Please spare me mine. Please. Master, please.
Who is that guy?
Burn the system down and start a fire.
Marching down the street saying you invited. Hey, yo, Nico, come outside. Fist up in the air and put it higher. We the people gotta stay united. Burn the system down and start a fire. Marching down the street saying you invited. Fist up in the air and put it higher. We the people gotta stay united.
Tonight defend the post, I just might dispose of these CEOs. They just gotta go eating the rich cause we dying of hunger pain. Swear that we living inside of the Hunger Games. This a monopoly playing the money game. You wanna wipe it, get fence on a sunny day, huh? Your favorite rapper probably went to Diddy parties, It's decided we don't side with any parties, no. Republican, Democrat, this be the death of that. It's time to settle that. Molotov in my hand, make them all scared again. Collective consciousness, it's time to rise again. Rich in the Zionists, this is the final and end in the IOFN and the Zionists. You a lion in bed with liars and straight supplying with guns and violence. It's no surprise that we reach the lions, then light the fire, then we can rise again. They keep provoking our freedom, under the rubble we breathing. The people that gave me a reason, I will not stop till I free them. See the signs, they feed us lies and redefine where freedom lies. We need to rise, we can't comply with genocide. These greedy minds will suit and ties will meet the minds. Better watch your back because the people heading up. People been sleeping, now it's time to wake them all up.
Burn the system down and start a fire. Marching down the streets and you invited. Fist up in the air and put it higher. We the people gotta stay united.
Okay, first things first, free Gaza. I need Elon's body dropping. I need TNT in Congress. I need Luigi in my roster. Getting janitorial, got a little street sweeper. Big fan of dead leaders, VIP meet and greet 'em. Street eeny money mo, how I treat my CEO like Bird, but all I can see now is rojo. Just the other day I was scrolling on my phone though, trying to cope with the notion that I'm culpable. Saw the trolley problem at the POTUS with a locomotive. Band together first, then focus on your locomotive. 756, really it's a low total, come get in the mix. Teach you how to toe the pole, walking with a stick. Hits up from a stone's throw since you love big tech. Got forward. Hit a 187 on a piggy if you wanna make a difference. SpaceX ain't the only ones with a mission. My team got the rockets out and used to try to catch them all. Trying to decimate the deficit down to the very last decimal. Look, I don't know how to balance a budget, but I know how to take every last ounce of blood out of your stomach. I feel like Neo would applaud me. I ain't the one. I said I am the sun. Blinded by rage, got bell on the side of my gun. Defiant, denying, defunded. Fine with the timing, compliant. I'm not the pious. Go try me, I'm lighting them up. Say, give me the mic. I am live from the mud. What them it say? It's time to what the kids say? It's time to jump.
Burn the system down and start a fire. Marching down the streets and you invited. Fist up in the air and put it higher. We the people gotta stay united. Burn the system down and start a fire. Marching down the streets and you invited. Fist up in the air and put it higher. We the people gotta stay united.
The Hurst Collective is an American queer punk musical collective based in Philadelphia. They have amassed over 50 releases and are known best for their fluidity in their lineup and queer and trans-minded radical politics. Here's We Are Still Here by the Hurst Collective.
Still here. I'm still here.
I'm still here.
I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still here. I'm still here.
still here! Hopefully that worked.
Have a band you'd like me to review or feature? DM me at lucretia.mcevil with some links.
Is you on our side or is you faking? Is you trying to leak our information? Is you a prophet or is you for profit? Is you for yourself or for the nation? Oh, it's just a toxic logic. Why you keep fucking around? You're so nasty. Oh, you get wrong. You're so nasty. You's a lie, you's a lie, you's a right now. You's a lie, you's a lie. You should sit down. Oh, nasty. Is you trying to rid our education? Would you switch your race for the pay? Is you a Karen or is you just caring? Is you for yourself or for the nation? Well, it's just a toxic logic. Why you keep fucking around? You're so nasty. Oh, you get wrong. You're so nasty. You's a lie, you's a lie, you's a right now. You's a lie, you's a lie. You should sit down. Oh, nasty.
The only thing is that with all this political terrain happening right now, I don't know how far we can go more. We must have to pause, because as far as there is a small political space, if we are not going to move ourselves as that we are conscious, who's going to do for us? If not now, when?
Yeah! Talk that shit, man. Talk that shit, homie. Talk that shit for black people, brown people, yellow people, beige people. Talk that shit for poor people. Talk that shit for the worker class, man.
Yeah.
You trooped up, homie. We got your motherfucking back. You can say whatever you want to say about whatever you want to say. Tell the truth and shame the motherfucking devil.
Bum. The target of poverty by a white devil. Cause I wasn't testing at my reading level. I was testing any of these busters. Where you from, body? Lola like, baka nagtatambay dun sa kalye parate. While kids was playing Autobots and Decepticons, we was really Megatron. We always turn to firearms. That's why when I die, I won't be talked about in smart class. But the hood gon' guarantee at least an R.I.P. hashtag. Post Reagan, Bush, and Clinton raps to get a third strike. Beat a neo-Nazi stupid ass back to the Third Reich. Peel off in a dirt bike. Wheelies off the 101. The devil lied so you could drive your auto on petroleum. The devil bet on real estate to fail in 08. Invested every cent in water commodities so they fluctuate. Lucifer moving your school budget into policing and telling all these polices it's black and brown hunting season. Rally round the family with a pocket full of shells. Got a pocket full of stories that might land me in jail. And if you feel it, turn me up and let me talk my shit. Go ahead and talk that shit. Yeah, I'ma talk that shit. Rally round the family with a pocket full of shells. Got a pocket full of stories that might land me in jail. And if you feel it, turn me up and let me talk my shit. Go ahead and talk that shit. Yeah, I'ma talk that shit. Go ahead and talk that shit. Ooh, I'ma talk my shit. Come on and talk that shit. Yeah, I'ma talk that shit. The devil isn't listed in a Bible page. He was choking Eric Garner, took that brother's life away. He put bullet holes inside a Trayvon. He shot Oscar Grant right in his back with his cuffs on. He shot Michael Brown and left him dying in the street. He beat Rodney King, trying to get back up on his feet. He took Sandra Bland and faked her suicide in the jail. He murdered Alton Sterling over DVD sales. He took Freddie Gray, then he took Freddie Gray. He jumped out of car and shot Tamir while he played. He murdered Earl Hayes, shot Philando in his car. Same devils in the desert stealing oil in a war. Same devil got you blinded so you frontin' your raps. That shit is whack, you're the all lives matter of rap. Yo, shut the freeways down. I give a fuck if you was stuck sitting in traffic right now.
It's my motherfucking bro, man. We don't give a fuck if you stuck in traffic. You gon' hear us or you gon' motherfucking fear us. But the system coming down if everybody don't get their fair share, motherfuckers. Talk that shit, man. Talk that shit on the behalf of the people. Yeah. No color. All these my motherfucking brothers. Worker class motherfucker. Villains. GLNS. You fucking bastards. Pray for the devil.
This week's Scene Spotlight is about food not bombs and community fridges. If you started watching Soundcheck because of my work on YouTube, you know how much I love and appreciate community-ran food programs. Food Not Bombs is a 35-year-old community-ran anarchist organization whose primary goals are providing free and accessible meals and produce to anyone who wants or needs them. According to their own words, Food Not Bombs is trying to inspire the public to participate in changing society and focus the resources we do have on solving problems like hunger, homelessness, and poverty. Food Not Bombs is staunchly anti-war and strongly believes that we the people can lead by example and work cooperatively without leadership through volunteer efforts to provide all essential needs like healthcare, housing, food, and education. With over 500 chapters listed online and 1,000 worldwide, Food Not Bombs is active in 60 countries across Europe, the Middle East, Africa, the Americas, Asia, Australia, and New Zealand. There is a space for you and your community to thrive without relying on capitalism. I believe that food should be free and accessible for all, and in lieu of that reality, I believe we should actively utilize and participate in community-ran food programming. With the government shutdown, millions of people will be hungry and lose access to their food. It is incredibly infuriating when you see yourself, your family, your friends, your neighbors deal with insecurity with food when we throw away 60 million tons of food waste per year. It is a crime for people to go hungry when we have so much food to give. It is a crime for people to be homeless when we have so many vacant homes. Instead of relying on the sorrow that this reality gives, mutual aid and direct action give you the ability to make a true difference in your community every day. Food is a great connector for building community and commonalities. After all, we all have to eat. To volunteer, donate, or find your local Food Not Bombs chapter, visit foodnotbombs.net.
We the people are the ones who gonna have to fight. We used to say, which side are you on? Which side are you on? The truth is, we're in so much debt that the only way out is revolution or war. So now the question is, which side are you on?
Which side are you on, boy? Which side are you on, my lord? Which side are you on, boy? Which side are you on, my lord?
See, before I draw the line, let me welcome you close to all the folks who knew Obama sold the people a hoax. Gave the money to suckers while our community still poor. Withdrew the troops but started another war. Colonizing, terrorizing, creating the oil crisis so they can make a killing on food and gas prices. Prisons is filling, they trying to lock up the future. Militarized borders and control of computers. Wanting stupid bumping music that ain't healthy for the shortest. Privatizing schools and policemen in the hallways. Can't be dormant, I'm awoken. Rise up, be ready. Brought the family with us and we hold them machetes.
Riding the fence, too many people be riding the fence. Yeah, you say you ready for war, but are you convinced? I'm not convinced. If you're a rider, freedom fighter, crowd excited, then let's do this. We can make one big united, middle finger to the US. Give me the bravest and the truest, fuck the hippest and the coolest. We gon' spark this revolution and cross this off our to-do list. Put your foot down if you look down on this criminal system. Put your book down and get shook down like my niggas in prison. Don't be condemning and condoning their actions in one sentence. Make up your mind, choose your side. Is you a patriot or a menace to society? So riot or sit by quietly. But don't pull out your flag and try to say you gon' ride with me. You flip-flopping like hip-hop, I don't get locked in that trick box. Get got like Big and Pop, shit's got to stop. I am the people, not the pig, I repeat after Fred. So please blow my brains out if I ever forget.
I'm with the independent thinkers, I'm down with the movers and the shakers and the ex-Henny drinkers, the non-smokers, the health advocates, the non-voters, the young bloods in the hood training like soldiers. I'm on the side of the tracks with the hood gardens, the little child that don't color inside the margins. I don't ride the fence, I cultivate my strength, cause if it ain't about power, it don't make sense. I've been down with Boogie Down since BDP, some Brown Pride, and Black Power make RBG. A OG told me choose battles wisely. In the struggle, don't forget your children and your wifey. If you don't see me on the podium preaching it, every day I hope my every action is teaching it. Cause revolution is a process, it's not a speech or a panel. Don't bite off more than you can handle.
City, Palestina, Venezuela, the South Bronx, baby. Yo, I still rock hard like slingshots in Palestina. Con todos los estudiantes por educación gratuita. I'm with workers uprising and the right to unionize. We ain't crossed the border, so you better legalize. I'm with La Peña del Bronx. I'm still with Victor Toro, cause gentrification is polluting my borough. So bro, never. South Bronx forever. Decolonize the block, make your neighborhood better. I ain't down with the rich, I'm more Richie Perez. Don't talk to grand juries or cooperate with feds. I'm with students, doctors, janitors, teachers. We need living wages, but they don't believe us. Monida, Barretto, Spofford, Hunts Point, my hood, I love. We join forces, forming our deck, BX. Taking over buildings, rebel Diaz for the children.
Politics to sickness, streets express symptoms. Caught up with it quickness, big business pimps them. Scholars play the simpleton, fools play with wisdom. Who will stand and fight back? Who will play the victim? Trials and tribulations, injured generations. Stolen history and outsourced innovation. Babel Tower fell, tribes are at war. The battle story's not represented in the score. The game's fixed, most of the faces and names switched. Credit stolen for art, science, religion, language, technology, philosophy, and with strangers. They paid in hatred for the knowledge of the ancients. Power in words, actions, guns, swords. Aim Panthers, brown berets, young lords. Pick a side, one sickness, one cure, one love, one blood, one world, but one war.
Malcolm Garvey, Huey, study
Dedicated to all political prisoners.
Their life was like a movie. Study Malcolm Garvey, Huey. Malcolm Garvey, Huey. Malcolm Garvey, Huey. Their life was like a movie. I die, I organize. Everything I do's revolutionize. I build what's good for the whole damn hood. Study G's like these, really think you should. I study Malcolm Garvey, Huey. Malcolm Garvey, Huey. Monster Cody with the Uzi. Listening to Fela Kuti. I'm Ogun with the machete. Especially if it's deli. Got the Santos for the Hexy to protect me, so respect me. This is heavy, legendary, revolutionary. My wifey, she resurrect me when they thought they had me buried. Took me out the cemetery, now it's family over every. Cause it's all that's necessary to avoid the commissary. I'ma live for you five. So I stop getting high. If you know, then you recognize it's that black and brown pride. This the power of the mind. RBG, God divine. You can see through the lies if you could read between the lines.
I live, I die, I organize. Everything I do revolutionize. I build what's good for the whole damn hood. Study G's like these, really think you should.
Study Malcolm Garvey Huey. Malcolm Garvey Huey. Study Malcolm Garvey Huey. Malcolm Garvey Huey.
Malcolm Garvey, Huey, Bunchy, Bobby, Pac, and Tukey. Sitting by the door so you can say I'm acting spooky. Just like in the movie, son, you better pack your toolie. Niggas switch be acting fruity or be cracking like they pookie. Rather smoke a doobie than be burning and eluding. Bang, bang, pig shooting, we should blame Rudy Julie. Yanny for the camera, shine a white and nose candy. Let you banging on the system, you a gangster wearing panties. RBG, my family from the Bronx to Miami. Police cannot stand me, Pacquiao like a Manny. Call me Little Bobby Hutton, cause I'm first to push the button. Rappers don't be saying nothing to the system, we say fuck them. This is for the Honda, Mama C, Mama Akua. All the real OGs, I'm a soldier cause you told me study Malcolm Garvey Huey. Malcolm Garvey Huey. Malcolm Garvey Huey, I'm reporting in the duty.
Sticky, icky, yours truly here for duty. Don Davino, M.A. Uno, you know how we drop the jury. This is real, not a movie, not Mickey, Donald, Goofy. I'm a soldier, I avoid a bitch nigga like the cooties.
Screw face in a hoodie.
Fresh pair of khakis, we could do this like we fam or go to war like the Apaches. For whatever, I stay ready. I learned that in Tallahassee. Babatunde used to school me as a juvie, skipping classes. Never let the system use me. My duty is my passage. Watch the homies in your army. They don't always show their badges. Keep your family living healthy. Teach your children about their blackness. Teach your wifey how to use the ratchet. This shit is classic. Get your food, clothes, and shelter. Fuck your system, pimp it backwards. I ain't hating, I'm just saying if you wanna be a rapper, study
Malcolm Garvey Huey. Malcolm Garvey Huey. Study Malcolm Garvey Huey. Malcolm Garvey Huey. Study Malcolm Garvey Huey. Malcolm Garvey Huey. Study Malcolm Garvey Huey. Malcolm Garvey Huey.
A technical approach is designed to get certain.
About a month ago, I had the pleasure of meeting and interviewing with Mike Krenshaw, a musician activist and one of the original founders of the Minneapolis Baldies and ARA, or Anti-Racist Action. We got into the nitty-gritty of what being a skin as a Black person is like, the importance and foundation of activism and politics within subculture, and much more. Here's our conversation. Would you mind introducing yourself to the Soundcheck audience?
Hello, my name is Mike Krenshaw.
Awesome. And I introduced them a little bit about the Baldies and the ARA. Do you mind touching a little bit on your background with the Baldies and the ARA?
Yeah, I became a Minneapolis Baldy in about 1986. So sometimes what you'll hear people say is the original seven. We didn't refer to ourselves as the original seven, but later when people kind of studied our history, you know, there were about seven of us in the beginning. So I was one of the original seven Baldies. Jay Nevels was really the brother who came up with the concept. It was me, Jay, Danny, Huey, Big Tim, Little Tim, and John Gilbertson. And so, yeah, we were just some skinhead kids in the hardcore scene. We chose to become skinheads because we liked the style. You know, we liked the music, and we didn't want to be punk rockers. We wanted to do something a little bit different. And shortly after we became a crew, Nazis started showing up. So very quickly we found our purpose in defending our scene from the Nazis.
Cool. That actually leads into my next question. I was curious about like what the political climate of Minneapolis really was around that. Like from the history I've seen, like in interviews and with the PBS doc, as you mentioned, there were Nazis around, but I'm just curious, like what was your experience firsthand, like especially since you're all teenagers, like what was that like?
Minneapolis at the time was one of the whitest urban, like mid-sized cities in the United States per capita. So proportionate to the demographics, it was mostly white city. It was the liberal city. So I think a lot of states resemble that dynamic where the big city is mostly liberal, but outside it's rural and it's mostly red or conservative. And being that it's a mostly white city, whether it was liberal or not, if you were a black kid on the streets, chances are you had bad experiences with white police officers. Chances are you had experience with white people treating you like you didn't exist or not acknowledging your existence, or worse, like outright, disrespecting you and being racist. So that was a common experience for me as a black kid in the punk scene. I was one of few people of color in the punk scene. So punk scene is another, mostly white subculture at that time in Minneapolis. When the Nazis showed up, for me personally, I knew I had to be militantly opposed to their presence because socially, I had fought so hard to find a place where I felt at home. I didn't fit in for most of my childhood. 99% of my childhood was fraught with struggles with identity and fitting in and trying to find a group of friends that I could keep because my family moved around so damn much from all over Chicago, a couple smaller communities in Illinois, and then up to the Twin Cities of Minneapolis, St. Paul. So by the time I got to high school, I was, in one way I was enraged, in one way I was sad, and in another way I was just tired socially because I couldn't find a space to exist socially that felt like where I was seen, respected, and understood and honored. So when I found the Baldies in the punk scene, it was the first time I felt comfortable and empowered socially. And so when the Nazis showed up, I was like, hell no, I'm not letting these fuckers take this from me. And they're racist? Fuck y'all. We're going, we're fighting. And my friends had my back. And they were like, Jason is Native American and black mixed race. And the other guys were these working class white kids, but none of them wanted to be seen as racist. And so we took a stand and we started fighting the what was at the time was called the White Knights. They had been organized by this older skinhead named Paul, who was a member of the Ku Klux Klan.
Yeah, so it seemed like it was definitely like out of necessity and over aesthetics, which like I'll always be young to like y'all as OGs and stuff, but I'm 33 and I've been going to shows since I was around 14. So I have a lot of similar experiences to you where it's like I moved around a lot and I felt like I didn't really belong, and that's kind of how I fell into hardcore and skinhead culture when I was younger. But also just the parallel of that, of like being a person of color and being so staunchly anti-racist and anti-fascist because it's like a matter of survival, and just seeing how sometimes other people don't really pick up on that because they don't necessarily have that experience.
I think, there was an intro to one of your videos where you were talking about this people thinking that you're not black if you listen to like punk music.
Yeah.
I love that because what you were talking about in your experience is such a unique experience for some of us who dare to venture beyond the confines of what we're supposed to do,
right,
in terms of our identity, right? And the absurdity of like, well, if you're black, you're only supposed to listen to this kind of music and you're only supposed to wear these kind of clothes, when all of that shit was created by Europeans in the fucking first place. Like, if you speak English at all, right? You're colonized. Shut the fuck up. Like, don't tell me what I can and can't do. I'm gonna do what I want, and I'm gonna follow my heart, and I'm gonna stand on that. But the thing is, in order for me to arrive at that level of commitment and assertiveness about my identity, I had to go through all the questioning where I internalized the things that people were saying to me about myself and actually believed them and doubted myself. And then you arrive at a place of frustration where you're like, you know what? This is harming me. I'm not going to accept it. I'm not going to internalize it. And then you go forward, like seeking liberation,
Yeah, that's really well said. I agree with that a lot because, like, for me, like you said, it's like it's limited thoughts. I grew up in a really pro-black household. Like, my grandmother was Black Panther, so for me, like, liking hardcore punk or whatever was never a matter of me like not liking myself. Like, my dad's a bassist. Like, I'm just a musician's kid, I like different things, excited by different things, and I always was like disheartened by that sort of like rigidity that people have. But I've explained this to other friends too. I feel like skinhead was like the first culture I felt proud of being working class. And like other like with hip hop, it was like I listen to the struggle and people understand my experience. Like I grew up in the projects, like I hear people talking about it, and there are some songs about pride for sure, but I felt like skinhead culture was like very explicitly proud of being working class, and that did numbers for my self-esteem as someone who had to like move around a lot, and I was poor as a kid. So I'm curious if you've had a similar experience too, like where it gave you esteem or something to like lean on.
You know, it was actually kind of confusing for me as a young man. Um, it took me time to figure out what the working class actually was and what it meant and how I should identify as a working class person. Because when we were really young and becoming skinheads, I hadn't really heard the term working class. I hadn't had a political education or class consciousness yet, but my family went from being poor in my early childhood to being a middle class Black family. And so there was this kind of like internal conflict where I didn't understand like my middle class privilege as a Black kid, as I didn't understand if it was authentically working class or not. Now I understand it was, because we weren't part of the ruling class, and my parents still sold their labor for, you know, our income that provided our lifestyle. And I started working at 15, you know, so because I like to have my own money, I got my first job at McDonald's, and I never looked back after that. I had most of my life, I've had 3 or 4 jobs just so I can have some type of economic freedom. But the political consciousness that's part of working class consciousness took a while to really kind of take hold of me, because I noticed some of my other friends, you know, we were across the spectrum from kids who were poor and from the projects or even houseless to kids who were middle class and upper middle class in the punk scene. But I noticed that some of the kids in the scene didn't even work, you know, and so even if their parents were working class, they might not actually be holding down a job, or their parents were rich and they didn't have to work. So I had questions about authenticity of that, of wearing that as a badge or identity. Now I'm looking back at it like, yeah, I've been working class, you know, my whole life, just because I'm not a member of the owning class or the ruling class.
For sure. Cool. That's definitely good to know. And I feel like I don't know, like I go back and forth with it because there are certain pockets of like skinhead and punk culture that aren't necessarily the most politically inept, but at the same time, like what you were just experiencing, I feel like my class consciousness and understanding came from being presented these ideas through music. And I was just curious if like that's how it was for y'all back then. Like, did you start expanding on ideas about activism or organizing because of the music you were listening to, or was it like the other way around, like where you organized first?
It wasn't either or, it was both and. And for us, we started to resist the encroachment of the Nazis in our scene through community defense and direct action. So we violently engaged the Nazis to protect our scene and to get them out of our scene. And that, at first, we were just doing what we felt like we had to do. But as time went on, we started to understand that that was a political move, that we were taking a political stand to rid our scene of fascists and neo-Nazis. And adults in the community, whether they were our teachers at the alternative high school that a lot of us went to, or older activists who started to become aware of our activity, some of them started to intervene. Some of them didn't like what we were doing and were like, that's not the way violence doesn't work, you know, the kind of peacenik anti-war folks. But then there were some more militant older folks who were like, y'all are doing what's right, but it's not all there is to it. You need to get a political education and start to understand that these neo-Nazis are a symptom of something deeper. And that if you really want to fight, you need to understand that this is a generational liberation struggle and you need to address the root cause of the issues, not just the symptoms. And it was that process through which older revolutionaries started to interact and inform and influence our consciousness that I started to understand I am an activist. This is a form of activism. There is a universe of political consciousness that I can integrate and learn from, and I should. And so that started to shape the path that went beyond the punk scene ultimately, and is still part of who I am and my activity today.
For sure. Yeah, it was really cool watching the PBS documentary, seeing how everyone evolved. And I'm going to talk to Michelle soon also. And I just love that she's like a doula. And like,
Yeah.
it seems like, I was going to ask her this too, but it seems like y'all did grow a lot as human beings, but a lot of what you are has always kind of remained the same. Like for her, is like her feminism, her activism, it like progressed her into, you know, doing more healthcare work and advocacy in that way. And I'm curious if there's like any through line that you would say for yourself, like you've kind of held on through the years that you've been a part of this community.
When I was a 16-year-old, 17-year-old, 18-year-old kid, being a Minneapolis Baldy and a black skinhead, I never could have imagined that in my 50s and beyond, the work that I was doing as a young person, and I didn't see it as work, I was just being myself, right, would have a lifelong impact, and that in my elder years, it would actually come back in such a powerful way, right? So like recently we produced a few years ago, a podcast out of Portland called It Did Happen Here. It Did Happen Here podcast.com. And then while we were doing that, Twin Cities Public Television and David Ross produced the Baldies documentary. And then these other books started coming out. No Pasaran, I think is the name of the one anti-fascist book. And then We Go Where They Go. And I started to be interviewed for other books and became a guest on other podcasts. And then when the It Did Happen Here podcast book came out, when PM Press published that, we began to tour the whole country. And I started to talk to rooms of people all over the United States who were influenced by anti-racist action and who were still doing work in the communities. And that, my heart is full because, like I said, I didn't know that the work we were doing when we were just doing what was right with each other would have this impact that traveled around the country and around the world. And so for that, I'm proud, you know? Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I bet it's really trippy. I was thinking about that. I'm like, I wonder how you feel talking to me. Like, like I know about what y'all were doing even before the documentary, everything just word of mouth. Like ARA shaped me as a person, like being younger and like when I first got into skinhead culture, I didn't really know all the politics and ins and outs. And I'm from Brooklyn originally. I shaped in Chicago and I didn't know I was moving to gangland at all. Had no idea. I was like a big, like a doe, like a little baby deer, you know, I had no clue. And actually, Chicago ARA helped me stay away from people who were unsafe, who I had no idea about, because Chicago ARA made it their duty to like tell people, like, hey, you're a new skin, I've never seen you before. Do you know who these people are? Like, and it's obviously from the legacy of what y'all were doing, because like even the idea of like confronting a Nazi or like going up to him and being like, you don't belong here, we'll come back. Nobody did that before y'all, and like it's just crazy that that legacy still continued like from back then. I shaved in, it was 2009, so that we were doing that in 2009. So people are still doing the same thing that y'all did. It's like it's carrying over. It's like a part of skin culture. Like if you're sharp, like what y'all did, we still do this. It's a part of our legacy. So I wanted to share that part too, because I was like, I wonder how trippy it's gonna be for them, me interviewing them about this, and they're like, what? Like I like you said, you were just 16, you had no idea about this.
So that makes me so proud for numerous reasons, but like to get past my own egotistical relationship to my personal experience with it. One thing about skinhead culture is that I feel it's never been commodified in a way that completely tore the heart and soul out of it.
Mhm.
You know, you'd see there were times where in the 80s and 90s, the bomber jacket or the flight jacket, and Doc Martens and his shaved head, even Fred Perry's, began to catch on in a trendy way outside of the skinhead scene. And you'd see people and you'd kind of like look them up and down and you'd be like, that dude's just wearing that because it looks cool, you know? But because of the violence associated and the militancy associated with the culture, I think a lot of people who wore the look, once they were encountered and were like got checked for it, they were like, I'm not wearing that no more.
Oh, absolutely.
But that's a good thing. And so to see that what you just shared, that in 2009 you shaved in, and that the comrades in Chicago were holding it down and letting you know, showing you the ropes. That's a beautiful thing. That's culture for real.
Yeah.
Because it's not something people are doing to make a profit real quick. It's not something people are doing because everybody else is doing. And there's a price you pay for this commitment. And it's not, sometimes it hurts, you know what I'm saying? So like,
For sure.
that's real shit. That's authentic, man. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Of course. And like I was just saying before, like, with Chicago being like so diverse, there was actually a time period where like there were Nazi skins who were interact with people around my age, fresh cuts, but not negatively, but kind of using us as like, what's the, like, I guess like a beard or a cloak or something, because they were more concerned about people from your era coming and attacking them, so they used us to be like, we're not racist. We're not racist. See, I have a Colombian fresh cut. I have a black fresh cut. Like, see, like that actually happened to me and my friends when we were younger. And then that, like I said, that's when Chicago Air Raid kind of told us like who was who and what was what. But so we pieced it together. So it seemed like your influence of like the Baldies and Shock and everybody being sharp and like militant in the stance really put a fear on the right, which is like, for me, is like a positive thing, because like I want them to be afraid, because this is our scene, right? Like they shouldn't feel like they have any stake or claim to it, but it just goes to show like how cowardly Nazism is, and like how at the end of the day I feel like they really just want to be a part of something. It doesn't matter what. They're just seeking some sort of community, you know what I mean?
Just like I was, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so there is a part of this that's just part of the human psyche, and the human desire and need for community, and to see oneself reflected, you know. And so, but I'm not saying that to suggest that we go soft on fascism.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's also what is driving their desire to become fascist is to actually be part of a group that is toxic, that's harmful, that's dangerous, that's not safe for the rest of us, you know? And if we're ever going to evolve past this predator-prey hierarchy that exists parallel to these systems of oppression and capitalism and imperialism and white supremacist dominated patriarchy, you know, if we're ever going to get past that, that fascist element has to constantly be confronted, you know, actively stomp the fuck out. Because in order for them to be safe to operate, no one else is safe.
Mhm.
Because their purpose is to deny our right to exist in order for them to be the dominant force. And so we have to come together and rid ourselves of that.
For sure, yeah. I try to tell people like I'm a hippie and accepting, upset for when it comes to like fascism. That's like my most militant part of myself, because like you said, like we can't really allow any room for that. It's like a fungus. Like you can't let it spread at all. That would be a good lead into the next question I have for you. I'm curious if you felt like you were fighting like a cultural battle as well as a political fight, like while y'all were organizing, especially since like you know that skinhead culture was multicultural at first. It was not on fascist or Nazi shit in the beginning. So I'm curious if like y'all felt like a moral or a cultural obligation as well when you were going up against the white knights?
Most certainly did. And for those of us, not all of us, but for some of us who were black skinheads, I think the contradiction of being black, being a skinhead, and being in a subculture that was already marginalized within the dominant culture of white supremacy in Western society, United States, presented a complex of issues for us to have to face culturally, socially, identity-wise, politically, in our own consciousness. And after a while, it became something that was hard to sustain, to be marginalized as a black person, to be marginalized as a member of a subculture, and to realize that the type of problems I faced as a skinhead in the punk scene, fighting white supremacists, were more intense than my white counterparts were facing. Some of the questions that I had to face inside of myself when I looked in the mirror, or in terms of personal safety, caused me to question my ability to stay in the punk scene, my ability to continue to wear the uniform of a skinhead, because I started to ask, what is this doing for my people? What is me being a skinhead doing for Black liberation? How does me being a member of a group that few people understand or even take interest in understanding going to contribute to the creation of a mass movement for liberation? If people can't get past what I'm wearing, and I'm always having to explain myself to other working class people, I started to ask, well, is me being part of this culture a barrier to solidarity with other working class people, And so I didn't necessarily have a yes or no answer, but these were the things that I had to look at as a black skinhead.
It's awesome that you brought that up, because I feel like that's a unique experience most skins don't experience. But as a black skinhead, I had very similar questions for myself, and like for a period of time I actually walked away from the scene because of that. Like I leaned way more into my activism for a long time, because like you said, there was just like, for me, like it was like, okay, we're angry about the system, but what now? Like what do we do now? Like I'm a very hands-on person, so like if we're not doing anything tangible for it, like it became like an unnecessary thing. But I feel as though it's because my generation, we got a little bit too complicit. Like y'all's generation ran all the Nazis out, so the Nazis were only on the internet when I was coming up, so we didn't really have anybody to fight. So it was more about community in that sense, and there were things like that, but it wasn't as active as it was for y'all. Like I hear war stories kind of from my OGs, and I'm like, yeah, the dynamics were way different. And I think millennials, unfortunately, we got a little bit complicit with things. And I feel as if that's why there's like sort of return of the tide now, where like Nazis and white supremacists are now out in the open now, right? Because there was no opposition, I guess. It was not like outward, but that's just my criticism I have for like hardcore and punk in general. Like that we got like too apolitical because we did all the work essentially. That like, well, yeah, everyone's liberated, so now we don't have to actively like make sure the scene is safe or anything. But if you leave a little crack open, then bam, now we're back. The climate is like similar to the 80s again, where there are Nazis and right wingers showing up a lot more in punk, the hardcore, where they never would have done this like 10, 20 years ago. They would have never shown their face. They'd be too afraid to, but now they're more emboldened. And Nazis who haven't organized in 15 years are making bands and stuff like that again.
It inspires me to, consider that these are cycles, that these things go in cycles in this society, because what we're seeing now looks a lot like what we were seeing in terms of the right wing and mainstream politics, a push to the right and extreme right and mainstream politics that begins to influence social base in society. And so you know, whereas neo-Nazis were the ones who had the uniform, you know, they would cosplay like Nazis and have on the brown shirts or the black shirts and the boots and the little swastika armband on one end of the spectrum, and the other ones on the other end were neo-Nazi skinheads that are boneheads that wore Doc Martens and bomber jackets and screwdriver t-shirts and boots and braces and so forth. But I say all that to say they were easy to pick out. That look, right? You could go, oh, that dude's a Nazi because of how he looks. Whereas now when it becomes more mainstream, it's like, oh, these guys marching through Charlottesville, they're just wearing like khakis and polo shirts, right? Or the Proud Boys appropriating the Fred Perry look, but not outside of that, not really having much more in terms of identifiable markers because it's mainstream. So you could just be next to somebody in traffic and they could have extreme right views, but you're not going to know it because they're not wearing a uniform. Notes it. And that's actually dangerous, you know, because we can't identify our enemies as much by a look as we could at a certain point in time.
Right. Yeah, I agree. It's definitely scary the more insidious it is. And I'm not sure if the Baldies in Minneapolis did the zines as well, where they like showed communities like, oh, this is what like Nazi symbols are like, and if you see this, this is what this crew is. Did y'all do that at all in Minneapolis or no?
So they already started to, you know,
Okay.
But it wasn't as prominent. That movement has developed over time. Where now it's very clear. I've seen the sheets circulating, and you know, even the ADL and Southern Poverty Law Center, now they have these websites,
Right?
You know, but they can thank us for that.
That's what I was saying. Yeah, that's why I brought it up. Like, I definitely saw that before, and I was like, this is from a punk zine. Like, I have the original. I remember, like, when I lived in Chicago, yeah, like, people would come to shows and pass them out, and even back then, they would, that's where doxing even came from. Originally, that was from the area, y'all. Like, they would have the Nazi's picture, all his known aliases, date of birth, and as much info as possible on him, and if they could, they would put their jacket on there too, like their whatever they got arrested for. And yeah, I always thought that was like really awesome because like now, like you said, they're all very insidious. They like want to be hidden. So a zine like that doesn't allow them the space to be hidden.
Right. So we would out them, you know, and that's where the culture of doxing was born in recent history. But let us understand that, you know, there were also wanted posters for fugitive slaves that the state would dox revolutionaries, the state would dox freedom fighters, right? Because we would be on the run. So these practices are practices that we've used defensively, but they've also been used defensively against us. And now we're in another cycle where the state and surveillance capitalism, you know, and the surveillance state that's part of the digital reality, we're being outed. Right. And there's no, you know, there's a lot of questions. The security culture is constantly evolving. And, you know, some of us are jumping off of the big tech platforms to try to find these more encrypted platforms, right? Because we are so reliant on tech and devices for communication that we're also very vulnerable.
%, yeah. I'm starting to notice that too, like within punk and hardcore especially. There's a lot more back to like analog sort of things. Like I see like actual physical flyers again instead of just like being on the internet. Like people are printing flyers again and hanging them up around, which is really exciting. Or, on the flyer, it doesn't have any details. We're back to Ask a Punk, which I appreciate because that keeps our community safe and more insulated anyway. If you know the people and you can like vet them who's going to the show. So I feel like because of surveillance and things like that, we're trying to counteract in the ways that we can, and with the history that we know. And for as much as we kind of like deny that part of ourselves, I feel like that's a really important part of like punk and hardcore history, like just knowing the people that you're going to shows with, so that way that's how you know what's happening. You don't have to like go online or buy on Ticketmaster or whatever.
Yeah, again, like an underground culture, right? So people are vetted. You know, and if somebody comes around, the first thing people ask is, who's that person? right? And if no one knows who that is, you go and you check that person, you know, face to face. You ask them, where are you from? Who do you know? And what are you doing here? And you protect your scene. And by the time you get to know somebody, there's a level of trust and intimacy that's available because you're relying on each other for each other's safety. And if you're protecting your scene, chances are you've been through a few circumstances together where you know, okay, this person has proven themselves and I can rely on them. And we have to get back to that.
Mm-hmm.
There's something valuable about that.
For sure. I'm curious if there's any lessons that you would want, like my generation, the generation underneath us, what would you want us to know as far as like keeping our scene safe or organizing in general? I know that's a broad question, but if there's anything that comes to mind.
And the skinhead scene has done a good job of this over the decades. But we need to think internationally. We need to be internationalists in our approach. We need to understand that our struggle and our communities, our successes, our victories are connected to a worldwide working class. And for those of us who are melanated people, we have mother communities that we need to identify with, and that if we can have the privilege and we can have the access and the resources, we need to have personal relationships with people, especially Black folks. We need to be having relationships with people all over the diaspora and relationships with people at home on the motherland, even if we weren't born there, generationally, even if you could go back and, you know, not even your great-grandparents were born on the soil of the motherland. We still need to make an effort in it. And I want to remind us, those of us that are Black skinheads, and really all skinheads, this is a Black culture. This is a Black subculture. Even though in its current and recent states, we can see it populated by mostly, you know, white folks, the music, the rhythm, the style, the dance, the sense of community, the slang, that comes from us. And we should be proud of not just isolating it to mimicking something that happened in a certain amount of time in England. We need to understand that we can go all the way back to the roots of our indigeneity and find a through line. The movement, through the cultural expression, through the rhythm, through the call and response, and all that stuff. So I know I said a lot, but yeah.
No, that's awesome. I can land on a positive question, or like a more uplifting one. I'm curious if you have any favorite memories from back then, with you and your friends that you'd like to share.
You know, I think my favorite thing was getting a new flight jacket, a new Paradox, or a new pair of creepers. You know, there's this argument about whether skins wore creepers or not. What we did. We weren't so traditional. One of the things about the Baldies is that we incorporated styles from other subcultures. So we put a lot of hip hop, some cholo style. You know, we put some of the gang culture style in our stuff too, and I'm proud of that. But like when you would get your new thing, and you would just be so proud of it because it would make your uniform pop. You know, and you know, a new pair of boots could set off some jeans that were kind of
true.
But then there's also like breaking them shits in too. Like I remember getting them docs and walking around because we would troop all over the city on foot, and then having like a hole in my Achilles tendon from that hard ass leather. But the style, the aesthetic, and taking pride in the way you looked and dressed. But that was the beginning of the second part, is showing up and seeing the homies, you know, and checking out each other and affirming each other's style and beauty and power, and how good it felt to all be together. You know, you're on the corner and there's 10 of you, and everybody in traffic and on foot that walks by has to take notice of you. And this sense of pride about, yeah, this is us, this is who we are, you know. I love it.
Yeah. I always say skinheads are a bunch of romantics. Like, everyone's just excited to be around each other and wants to spend time with each other. So even though we look mean and grumpy, we're all just a bunch of softies. So
Bunch of teddy bears.
Word. Here's Retribution by Mike Krenshaw.
Black skinhead, Minneapolis, Baldies, Mike Krenshaw, Johnny Cool, Tony Hill, let's go.
As a teen, I was a link between Doc Martens and Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. I had a provocative future, leaving bodies and sutures. The knife in your pocket, the Glock of the Ruger, Molotov, Kalishnikov. I thought we ought to be shooters. The cops would piss me off, how they would not even do shit, but to the cadre who were part of the movement, the fight. I saw the slaughter was futile. To survive it, you know you gotta be brutal. Excitement, it taught me how to be ruthless. It coincided with pride you can find in the music. Youth, it wasn't easy, wouldn't change it for nothing. The painful mistakes and the tough repercussions. Despite self-destruction, we did something or something. Killing your sisters and your brothers, that's counterproductive.
Anybody hear about the revolution? Concrete jungles and institutions. Ruthless leaders, always restitution. 40 acres and retribution. Yeah, 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 yeah. The revolution. Yeah, 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 yeah. Retribution.
Imagine Fred Hampton in the Fred Perry slam dancing, revolutionary mindset behind the drive to survive. By 1995, I left the violence behind. I strive to thrive by applying my mind to rhythm and rhyme that was designed to define contradictions and conditions of opposition in time. The mission remains, but the approach is refined as vultures encroach on a culture that dine in hopeless gropes at our throats and our spines. Law enforcement endorses torture and crime, and politicians in the system want to force us to die. I have African peers that are passionate leaders, biographical strips written for actors in theaters. Minneapolis shit, from Chicago to here, in Brooklyn, Oregon, since I've been gone rhyming for years.
Anybody hear about the revolution? Concrete jungles and institutions. Ruthless leaders, always restitution. 40 acres and retribution. Yeah, 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 yeah. The revolution. Yeah, 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 yeah. Oh, retribution.
That's our time so far, folks, and thank you for joining me for this episode of Soundcheck. Thanks to MNN, the bands I mentioned, and you for watching. Like Raby said, all you kids out there, keep the faith. Peace.